Your friend is introducing everyone to someone new, goes around the table with a little story for each person, what they do, how they're connected, and when they get to you, they just say your name. Nothing else. Maybe a wave in your direction like you came with the room, and you smile, because what else would you do? But something behind your ribs folds in on itself. Not pain exactly. More like an erasure. A small public subtraction that nobody noticed because nobody was looking for it. What I'm about to walk you through are the micro-insults so dressed up as friendship that you've probably been absorbing them for years without naming a single one. They don't leave marks anyone can see. But you feel them. And the last one is the reason some friendships leave you more tired than any enemy ever could. A stranger insults you and your defenses go up immediately. Your brain registers threat, files them under not safe, and moves on. But a friend insults you and your brain runs a completely different program. It says, they didn't mean it like that. You're reading into it. They love you, so you override your own instinct. You swallow the sharpness and keep chewing. Micro-insults don't survive in hostile environments. They need warmth. They need trust. They need a relationship where you've already decided to assume the best, because that assumption is exactly what makes you defenseless. There's research showing that social pain from close relationships registers deeper in the brain than identical behavior from a stranger. Closeness doesn't protect you from the wound, it amplifies it. Because the person holding the knife is the same person you'd normally run to when you're bleeding, you don't walk away angry, you walk away confused. And you spend the next 2 hours replaying it, building a case, then tearing your own case apart. Confused people don't set limits, they just absorb more. So here's where they hide. You tell your friends something good happened. A promotion, a date that went well, something you've been quietly hoping for that finally came through. And they say, "Oh, nice." Maybe a nod. Maybe a quick, "That's cool." Then they pivot, start talking about something happening in their life, and your news dissolves between you like it was never said. Here's what you need to sit with. 2 weeks ago, a mutual friend got similar news, and your friend lit up, asked follow-up questions, sent a text the next day checking in. You watched them be generous with their excitement for someone else, then watched that generosity vanish the moment it was your turn. The surface message is simple. I acknowledged it. The buried message, the one that keeps you up at night, is different. Your wins don't move me. You can't call it out. Because technically, they responded. They didn't ignore you. But you felt the gap between what they gave someone else and what they gave you. And that gap was so loud you could hear it over your own heartbeat. You weren't being sensitive. You were being precise. That one happens quietly, between two people, where nobody else can confirm what you felt. But the next one needs witnesses because the insult doesn't work without them. Dinner with a group. Everyone's talking over each other the way people do when they're actually having fun, and you start telling a story. You're mid-sentence, maybe mid-laugh, when your friend cuts in. Not to build on what you're saying, to correct a detail, the year it happened, the name of the restaurant. Something so irrelevant to the point that nobody would have noticed if your friend hadn't opened their mouth. But now every pair of eyes at the table slides from you to them. The conversation forks and follows the correction. And you're left holding the skeleton of a sentence you were excited about 30 seconds ago, looking for an entry point back into a story that now belongs to someone else. Something in your jaw tightens. The surface, just keeping it accurate. The buried, I'm the more reliable one here. And now everyone at this table knows that. It wasn't a correction. It was a repositioning. And the audience was the entire point, because they didn't fact-check you when you told the same story in the car on the way over. They waited for the room. It's not what they said. It's the audience they chose to say it in front of. Everything I just described, those are the ones that sting in the open, the ones you can almost point to. But the next one is harder to name, because it doesn't feel sharp. It feels fun. You know this one. You've lived inside it so many times you probably don't even flinch anymore. Road trip. Music playing, windows cracked, 3 or 4 of you packed in. Your friend brings up something about you, your dating life maybe. Or that thing you did last year that still makes your stomach clench and turns it into a bit, a performance. The car fills with laughter, and you're laughing too, because if you don't, you killed the vibe, you made it weird. You can't take a joke. But pay attention to what they choose to joke about. It's never random. It's the same soft spot, repackaged in a new punchline, served to a new audience. They rotate the delivery. They never rotate the target. Your laugh sounds wrong to you, and you can't figure out why. There's a concept in psychology called covert aggression hostility, structured to be completely deniable. The joke format is the perfect vehicle for it, because the moment you object, the frame flips. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're too sensitive. You're dramatic. And the person who just used your insecurity for entertainment gets to walk away looking like the fun one. What sounds like, "I'm just being funny," carries something else underneath. Something that says, "I've decided your discomfort matters less than my entertainment. And I've made sure you can't say that out loud without proving my point." You weren't being dramatic. It was real. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Because the next one doesn't sting at all. It doesn't feel like a joke, or a correction, or a dismissal. It feels like someone who loves you trying to protect you. And that's exactly why it's the most dangerous disguise on this list. The most confusing micro-insult you will ever absorb doesn't sound like an insult. It sounds like love, and it starts the moment you share something you're excited about. A new plan, a career shift. Something that scares you but lights you up every time you talk about it. You tell your friend. There's a half-second pause where something flickers across their face, not quite concern, not quite pity, but close enough to both that your stomach notices before your brain does. Then they say it. "I just don't want to see you get hurt." 7 words. And your certainty cracks down the center. Your shoulders drop a quarter inch. You didn't even notice they were raised. They didn't say it was a bad idea. They didn't tell you to stop. They did something more surgical, wrapped doubt in the language of care, handed it to you gently, and let your own mind carry the weight. You walked in feeling sure. You walked out second-guessing something you'd already decided. A micro-insult inside a friendship is like a thumbtack in a hug. You feel the sharpness, but pulling away makes the whole thing look like your problem. The surface. "I'm looking out for you." The buried. "I don't believe you can handle what you're reaching for. And I need you to hear that softly enough that I still look like the one who cares most." It wasn't support, it was a leash dressed up as a hand on your shoulder. You noticed because it was real. Not because something is wrong with you. This last one is the reason I made this video. And it's the one that'll stay with you longest. Because it doesn't target a moment or a decision. It targets the way you see yourself slowly, across years, until you can't tell the difference between their voice and your own inner critic. "You're not really a confrontational person." One line. Said casually over brunch. Or dropped in a group chat. Or mentioned in front of someone you were trying to impress. And you didn't push back, partly because the moment moved too fast, and partly because pushing back would have either disproved their point or proved it, and you couldn't figure out which. But that sentence didn't describe you. It assigned you. Every time it gets repeated, "Oh, that's just how you are." You've never been the adventurous one. You're the sweet friend, not the ambitious one. The walls of that role get a little thicker, and the room you're allowed to exist in gets a little smaller. You forgive it. You forget it. You absorb it. And you wonder why you feel so tired around someone who's supposed to be your closest person. They sandpaper you. Not all at once. Just a pass here, a pass there, until you're smooth, where you used to have edges. I started calling this one the quiet rewrite, because it doesn't insult who you are. It rewrites who you're allowed to become, and it does it so gently, so consistently, that after a while you start introducing yourself in their language, playing the character they wrote for you. Forgetting it wasn't your idea. Remember the first one, how they dimmed your news with a flat reaction? This one does the same thing, but it doesn't target a single moment. It targets your entire sense of self. And it doesn't happen once. It happens across 100 quiet comments over years, until you can't tell which beliefs about yourself are yours and which ones were installed by someone who needed you to stay manageable. You feel yourself shrink about half an inch. And you've been doing it for so long you forgot your original height. You didn't lose your confidence randomly. Someone's been borrowing pieces of it. The hardest part of everything I just described isn't the insult, it's the math your brain runs afterward. You weigh every good memory against that one moment, the trip you took together, the night they stayed on the phone with you until 3 in the morning, the years, the history, the inside jokes nobody else would understand, and the good memories win. They always win. That's not stupidity, that's love. But love without discernment is just an open door with no lock. You tolerate these things because you're loyal. And your loyalty has been used as permission. And yes, some of these, you've done too. Not with malice. Probably without even noticing. That's the entire point. Micro-insults don't require intention. They only require habit. And habits grow fastest inside the relationships where nobody's paying close enough attention to name them. But here's what changes now. You have the vocabulary. And vocabulary is the first form of defense. You can't push back against something you can't name. You couldn't name it before. Now you can. And that changes what you're willing to sit through. Which one of these have you been laughing off the longest? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this is your first time here, subscribe. Every video on this channel is about naming the thing nobody else will say out loud. Not every insult leaves a bruise. Some just leave a silence where your confidence used to be.